Hello, and welcome to Ocmulgee Mounds National Historical Park. I'm Ranger Drew, and today we're going to be taking a virtual tour of the Opelofa Trail. Now, for the easiest access to the Opelofa Trail, it's easier to park here next to the Great Temple Mound and then walk to the Heritage Trail extension, which you can see that we are on now. It's marked with this kiosk right here, and it also has a good map of the park on it as well. Now, we will begin our walk around the Great Temple Mound and Lesser Temple Mound here. But as we do so, I do want to kind of talk about the significance of these two mounds. The Great Temple Mound is about 55 feet high. It is the tallest mound that we have here at Ocmulgee Mounds. And it's significant because we believe that this is where the chief would have had his home on top of, as well as having several smaller ceremonies on top. Now, next to the Great Temple Mound is the Lesser Temple Mound, and we believe that's where the second chief would have had his home on top of, but we would also think of that as a vice presidential kind of role. That's where the VP kind of would have his home. I wonder what Christine is doing here. Now we're here on the backside of the Great Temple Mound, and as you look up to the top of it, you will see that there's a clearly cut path, but there is a lot of vegetation on both sides. Now, vegetation management is one very important task that our maintenance staff has here, because we do not want to harm the integrity of the cultural resource that is the Great Temple Mound. So we do have several specialized pieces of machinery that the maintenance staff is able to cut these steep slopes with regularly. That way we don't have to have too large of vegetations that may take chunks out of the side of the mound, but we are still able to have this beautiful cultural landscape. There's also a boardwalk that takes you to the top of the Great Temple Mound. This is where you can get really good views of downtown Macon and the surrounding area, just like the chief would have had here at the time as well. So right now, here you can see what is known as the clay pond to us here. This is an excellent wildlife viewing area. We have many different types of birds, which in the distance we can see a couple cranes and herons. But there's also a lot of other kind of songbirds that are around here as well. Very common here in the clay pond, we also get several alligators a year. This is kind of the perfect little safe haven for them to enjoy their summer into the fall. They have excellent food source with many fish and birds, as I mentioned. But once the weather starts to change and it becomes more of a cooler environment in the winter, we see the alligators start to leave and they go back into the river and head south. But we see a new kind of little critter around here, and that's going to be some otters. The otters are usually smart enough to know when to leave when the alligators come back in the spring, but it is nice that we're able to see a couple different variations of wildlife in this area. So right now we're stopping here on one of our bridges on this trail just to kind of feature this creek that we have. This creek feeds into the clay pond, but this is what's known as Walnut Creek. This also is a feeder creek for the Ocmulgee River. So this is how we get to have so many different types of wildlife here and biodiversity because the fish that swim in from the river, they go into our pond. Like I said, the alligators use this as an entry and exit way to get into the river and the pond. So this is really kind of the interstate system that we have here that gets so many different types of wildlife. Now this plant that you see right here, we have it a lot in this park. It's actually a native plant, and it is called river cane. River cane is a very interesting plant. It's similar to bamboo, as we know that, but this plant would have been very useful to the Native Americans that were here. They would have been able to help weave it to make different kinds of baskets. They would have also used it to help put roofs over their heads when it was going to rain. They would use this for some of their housing pieces, as well as for the sides of their houses. They're able to weave it together and then put clay on it, and that's how they were able to make their walls. So that is a very important plant that we have here, and our natural resource team has done an excellent job at planting a lot more of this native species and getting rid of a lot of the invasive species that we have seen here in the park before. you today? Good, good. Now this is the end of the Opelofa loop, or the Opelofa Trail. It does continue a little ways in this loop form, but it brings us right back to where we are. I would once again like to thank you guys for joining me on this virtual hike of the Opelofa Trail here at Ocmulgee Mounds National Historical Park.